As I reflect on this message, I'm reminded that the journey of the chosen is never meant to be easy. It was never meant to be popular, but it was meant to be sacred. Hearing Pope Francis's words feels like more than a message. It feels like a memory, not one from the mind, but from the soul. Like something we always knew deep down, but we're just waiting for the right moment to remember. I don't know about you, but I've felt that silent ache he spoke of. That strange pull at night, that tear without a reason, that unshakable knowing that I don't quite belong here the way others seem to. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's the point. You see, what if being cast aside was never a curse, but a calling? What if going through the darkness was never a punishment, but preparation? What if being misunderstood was just the universe's way of protecting your sacred fire until you were strong enough to carry it into the world? We're not here to fit in. We're here to light the way. So if you've been feeling the shift, if the old life no longer fits, you're not crazy. You're crossing over, and you're not alone. The bridge between worlds is closer than we think, and maybe, just maybe, you were born to help others cross it. So don't shrink, shine, because the world needs the light you almost gave up on. And now, the choice is yours.
In a world where the words of spiritual leaders echo through time, the final message of a man who dedicated his entire life to serving God and humanity carries an immeasurable weight. Pope Francis, a spiritual guide to millions, shared a powerful and moving revelation before his departure. This message wasn't just a farewell, it was a call to reflect, to act, and above all, to love. Today, we dive into the words he left behind for those who were ready, those who were prepared to hear his voice in a moment of great transition. But first, go ahead and like this video to help this message reach other awakened souls. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss anything, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing how far this message travels and who it touches. Pope Francis no longer slept like he used to. Something stirred within him, something that had nothing to do with physical pain, politics, or scandal. It was a burden he could no longer keep hidden, a truth he felt compelled to release. Alone in his room one night with a candle glowing beside his bed and his weary eyes fixed on the crucifix, he rose, reached for an old pen, and began to write. This wasn't an official statement, nor a papal encyclical. It wasn't meant for the Vatican's archives. It was something deeper, a confession, not the kind made in search of forgiveness, but one born from carrying knowledge too heavy to bear alone. He wrote for those who've been cast aside, for not fitting into expected roles, for those who love without boundaries, even when misunderstood, for those who wake up in the middle of the night with a strange certainty that the world is changing, and that they are part of that change. He wrote this message for you, you who see beyond the ordinary, who hear what's left unspoken, who feel the pain of the world without having caused it. This message is for you. The handwriting trembled. The words were simple, yet imbued with a sacred force beyond explanation. On those pages, the Pope revealed what he had quietly discovered over the years. Visions he had never shared publicly, dreams that returned again and again, and people he saw in prayer with shining eyes and wounded hearts. He admitted that even in his youth, he sensed the presence of souls who didn't fully belong to this world, chosen not by religion or human institutions, but by something far greater, by heaven itself. These beings walk among us. The world may not acknowledge them, but the universe does. They wear no crowns, yet they carry the weight of centuries. They live not for themselves, but for the whole. Few in number, yet they are the unseen pillars of this world. This confession was never made public. It didn't reach a pulpit or a press release. It remained hidden, tucked away in the pages of a personal journal, locked in a drawer known only to a few. But the words did not die, because when a spiritual truth is written with pure intent, It transcends time and space. It finds those who are meant to receive it, even if it's across languages, continents, or centuries. And now, are you listening? Yes, you. Not by coincidence, not by chance. You are hearing this because the message has reached you at exactly the right moment. There was one phrase in particular, short but heavy with meaning, that stood out. It was underlined, written with a firmer hand, as if Pope Francis had drawn strength from a higher place as he wrote it. They are already awake. But who are they? He didn't mention priests or saints or any known figures. He spoke of ordinary people, anonymous to the world, yet vibrating on another frequency, people with deep-seeing eyes and hearts that, despite breaking 1,000 times, still beat with compassion. They were born different, misunderstood from the start. Some were called rebellious, others were labeled as overly sensitive, naive, or even crazy. Many suffered in silence, yet they all share something. They remember. Even if they don't know exactly what, they remember. According to the letter, this awakening intensified in recent years. It was as if an invisible curtain had been torn away. Suddenly, they began to sense the lies behind the ordinary. They questioned rules they once followed blindly. The world they lived in no longer felt like enough, and so many distanced themselves from old friends, let go of religions, and left behind careers that no longer aligned with their souls. Some began connecting with strangers who somehow spoke the same language of the heart. In prayer, the Pope saw their faces, unknown men and women of all ages and nations. Though they were silent, their spirits were alert, their inner eyes wide open. They carried ancient codes, celestial memories, and a strength that didn't come from ego, but from the source. He wrote, "They don't belong to any religion, yet they are all connected by something the world doesn't yet comprehend, a sacred, subtle mission. Each one was awakened by the touch of the divine, and now they are finding each other." Because awakening doesn't end with self-discovery, it begins there. True awakening is realizing that you're not alone, that others share your dreams, your pain, your signs. That's what Pope Francis wanted the world to know, that the awakened ones are already here, everywhere. They no longer need to hide, but awakening is just the beginning of the path, not the end. What comes next is more challenging, but also more magnificent. Because when the awakened rise, they begin to move, and that movement changes everything. They wear no uniforms, carry no titles, and belong to no visible organization, yet they are everywhere, with simple yet profound words. The Pope described what many of us only feel, a silent, powerful movement growing in the hearts of the awakened. Not a protest, not a structured group, something else, something far more subtle and far more real. They recognize one another not by name, but by gaze, not by appearance, but by vibration. Words are barely needed. Silence speaks enough. These invisible souls are healing the world's wounds, even if no one notices. They are mothers raising their children with love despite hardship, youths abandoning everything to follow an inner calling, elders who still carry hope after all they've lost, simple people radiating a light so strong they shift the energy of every place they pass through. The Pope said this was a divine work in progress, something no empire, no religion, no government could ever control, because it is not born from fear, but from truth. And maybe that's why so many try to discredit the awakened. Maybe that's why they are mocked, rejected, pushed aside, because those still trapped in the illusion can't stand those who vibrate with truth. But even without applause, even without recognition, they remain steadfast and devoted to their mission. This invisible movement needs no leader, it follows no manual. It is guided by a higher intelligence, a divine force that stirs in the hearts of the awakened, like an inner compass that never fails, even when the world feels chaotic. That's why, on the surface, it may seem like nothing is happening, but in the spiritual realm, everything is shifting. Francis closed this portion of the letter with these words: "Do not fear the solitude of the path. Those who carry the light often must walk through the darkness, so that others may find the way. That phrase resonates in the soul of those who know they are here for something greater, who feel, even on their darkest days, that their life has purpose. But what came after this revelation? What did the Pope discover about the spiritual origins of these chosen ones? Because he wrote, "They are not from here." At that moment the energy of the letter shifted. Those who held it claimed to feel a strange vibration, as though the words had transcended time. It didn't feel like they were written by a man, but by a consciousness that could see beyond the veil. Francis wrote, "They walk this earth, but their feet do not belong to this soil. They were born here, but their souls come from elsewhere." That line disturbed many religious leaders, but it also awakened something in others. What if it's true? What if the chosen are ancient souls who agreed to incarnate here to guide humanity through its awakening? In his letter, the Pope spoke of visions, moments in prayer when the faces of the chosen would transform. Some appeared as beings of light, in other forms, in other times. Some bore strange symbols on their hands, their foreheads, their hearts, symbols he didn't recognize, but which came with a deep, unshakable certainty. These are messengers from another place. They came with a mission, but they forgot. He said the forgetting was necessary, because to live in this world, with all its pain, illusions, and density, one had to fully immerse in the human experience, to suffer, to love, to fail, to fall, to get lost. Only then could they remember. And that remembering, he wrote, does not come from the outside. It isn't a book, a church, or a person that awakens the chosen one. It's a quiet stirring inside, a moment in the night when something tightens in the chest, a dream that feels more real than waking life, a longing without a name, but still it aches. It aches because the soul remembers a place not found on a map, but in spirit, a vibration once left behind so that a mission could be fulfilled here. Pope Francis once wrote something astonishing. He said these souls are like angels wearing flesh, trained to forget who they are until the appointed time. And now, that time is near. Because when the chosen begin to remember, they awaken a strength, not of this world. They stop begging for love. They stop shrinking to fit in. They stop hiding. They begin to embody their essence, their light, their uniqueness. And that's when the earth begins to shake. Because the chosen did not come to maintain the status quo. They came to transform. And transformation disrupts, dismantles, tears off masks. That's why even though they carry light, the chosen can make others uncomfortable. Not because they try to shine, but because their light reveals the shadows in others. That part of the letter ended with an enigmatic line. They are the bridge between worlds, and the time to cross is closer than we think. But what did he mean by that? What are these worlds? And what does it mean to cross? The next section of the letter had a poetic tone, yet carried a sense of urgency. Pope Francis described a turning point, a pivotal moment in the journey of every chosen soul. He called it the crossing. And what is this crossing? It is the moment when an awakened soul can no longer pretend to belong, pretend everything is fine, pretend a normal life is enough, when every fiber of their being is screaming for purpose. And that moment is uncomfortable, because there's no going back. The crossing isn't physical, it's not a bridge you can touch, but it's real. It's the moment the soul chooses to live as it was born to be, not how the world expects, not how others demand, but in full truth. That's when the chosen begin to walk away from what no longer resonates. People, places, beliefs, and old versions of self begin to fall away. It may feel like everything is collapsing, but it's not the end, it's the beginning. Pope Francis said many think they are losing everything, but in truth, they are being prepared. What is not real must fall away so that the new can rise. And this crossing looks different for everyone. Some cross it quietly in the middle of the night after a single unexpected tear. Others walk through chaos in the middle of a crisis. But all of them, every single one, feels the same undeniable pull, a call that can no longer be ignored. And this calling doesn't come with a manual, no map, no guarantees, just you and your truth. But in that moment, something extraordinary happens. A new energy is released. A strength you never knew you had begins to lead you. And even with fear, even without knowing the next step, you go. Because within the chosen, there is a faith that wasn't taught. It was born with them. It is who they are. This crossing is not external. It is an inner rite of passage. And that changes everything, doesn't it? How many times have we waited for a sign, a push, a guarantee, when all along heaven was waiting for our choice? But what happens after the crossing? Who does the chosen one become after that point of no return? That's when the letter delves even deeper into the spiritual mission that follows the awakening. Once the chosen has crossed, there is no going back. They may try to hide, to stay quiet, to live an ordinary life, but they can't. The soul knows. It knows it didn't come here by accident. It knows it carries something the world needs. And it knows, deep down, it has a mission. Pope Francis wrote this part with a different intensity, as if speaking directly to each chosen one, reading or listening. As if to say, I know what you feel. I know the weight you carry in silence. Because yes, Peter, the mission of the chosen isn't light. It doesn't come with a red carpet or applause. It comes with silence, rejection, solitude, and a call that only makes sense to the heart of the one who carries it. After the awakening, the chosen one sees the world differently. Nothing is surface level anymore. Nothing is just coincidence. They see signs everywhere. They feel the pain of others. They hear what's behind the words. And more than anything, they realize they are a vessel, a channel for healing, for words, for love, and sometimes for confrontation. Because true awakening also shakes, tears, and exposes. The mission isn't the same for everyone. Some are here to heal with their hands, others with their voice, some through silence, others through their example. Some are called to tend to the forgotten, to embrace those no one sees, to lift the fallen with just a glance. Others were awakened to be mirrors, showing without a word that a different life is possible. Even when judged or rejected, the chosen one remains steady, because they no longer act to please people. They act because the soul refuses to live in lies. Pope Francis said that after the awakening, it's not about having a mission, it's about being the mission. That's powerful, because the chosen doesn't need a stage, a title, or recognition.